Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Gibson. Good morning, everyone. It's a very exciting day for me, being the first day to be here in Hong Kong, working as a professor public policy, University of Science and Technology, and I'll be leading the Institute for Public Policy from today on. I am very eager to know all of you, and through you, to know this wonderful place of Hong Kong. Professor Gibson asked me to give a view from Beijing, and I find that is a very challenging job to do because for one reason, I did not go to COP24. As a matter of fact, I have never been to any of the COPs. Then perhaps you just get a view from someone who just came over here late last night from Beijing. So what I'm going to do is just share some of my observation and highlighting the challenges we all face leading to the 2 degree or the 1.5 degree C. So I would probably sound a little bit pessimistic, but by no means I am one of the pessimists. And I want to highlight these challenges in order for us to see it more clearly, and then we can work together to solve the problem. So this is a question I'm asking. So are we going to deliver the Paris goal? The Paris goal was very clear. One of the major goals is to achieve well below 2 degrees C, right? And we'll work hard to achieve 1.5 degrees. Professor Gibson just highlighted how important and urgent it is to achieve 1.5 C. But in order to get the 1.5 C, we have to first get to 2 degrees C, right? Then that's the question, and this is my answer. I think it's, unfortunately, just looking from today, it is very, very unlikely to achieve the 2 degrees. Let me just explain why this is the case. Well, first of all, I will talk a little bit about this nationally determined contributions. We actually, from the very beginning, we never aimed at this target, right? I will explain why. Then the implementation in the last 3 years, a little more than 3 years, is quite inadequate. And the enabling conditions that we need to achieve the 2 degrees C are not quite there. And those are the conditions we really need to work hard to make them available. And finally, I will offer a little bit observation on how we are going to go with reform the current climate change governance globally and regionally. So for 2 degrees C, what do we need? Well, first of all, we need to peak by 2020. We're talking about less than 2 years from today, right? To peak the global emissions by 2020, right? Then from that, what we need to decline, to cut the carbon emission, greenhouse gas emission by 1/4 in 1 decade. Well, that is the challenge we face, okay? Can we do it? Well, initially, for a short period of time, this looks okay, right? From 2014 to 2016, we actually had a few very good years when the carbon emission actually leveled off. This is for global, and this is for China, 2014. Remember, that is the year when President Xi and President Obama get together. They jointly announced an agreement on climate change. That's the first time, November 12th, 2014, China agreed to peak around 2030, right? Interestingly, that is the year when we first time to see the Chinese emission first leveled off, right? They were talking about 16 or 15 years, 16 years from that day. But where are we now? Well, the past 5 years has been the warmest since 1880. Thinking about it. And the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere has been record high, more than 410. Right? The time when I started working on this, it's 315, 310, 315. In that short period of time, we have increased the atmosphere concentration by 100 ppm. And the greenhouse gas emission last year, according to the Global Carbon Project, has increased 2.7%. 2.7%. This is after the resumption of growth in 2017. So you can see there is no sign, there were no signs that level off on the concentration. So this is from Mauna Loa. Then last year was really troubling. So the global fossil fuel the global fossil fuel carbon emission has reached 37 billion tons. 37 billion. It's a very, very big jump. All right? So emissions will not peak by 2030. All right? So what we need is to peak by 2020. But now, seeing from today, the emissions will not peak by even 2030. Even if all countries fully implement their commitments under the Paris Agreement. So that's where we are, right? So the Katowice COP24 is a very successful, considered to be very successful. The Chinese government is very pleased. Before this, they worked really hard to make a success of COP24. And after that, the government, the delegation came back very pleased. Dr. Wang will tell you about that, right? Because we finally get the rule book agreed. But the fact is, if we all follow the rule book line by line, and we fully implement the commitment, still, we are 10 years short. We're 10 years short. So this is the gap we need, right? 15 billion tons by 2030, or 13 billion tons, whatever we look at, it's a daunting challenge, all right? So why do I say we never targeted? Because under all the NDCs, we can only, at the best, we can only get 3 degrees C. Well, that's, from the Paris. What we needed is additional degree. Then this is today, and we see a jump. We really see a jump of a resumption of growth. Look at China, all right, look at the United States. United States has been decreasing its carbon emission. Last year, it has increased 2.5%, 2.5%. Europe has been decelerating, has been decreasing very fast in the last year. It's decreased, but at a smaller amount, much smaller amount. So this is the kind of challenge we face today. All right, according to this the GAP report, Professor Gibson just mentioned, and the emissions gap is larger today than 1 year ago and 3 years ago, and all G20 altogether, 78%, nearly 80% of the world emission, not yet on track to meet their global climate commitment under the Paris Agreement. You can see. As a matter of fact, my colleague, my Brookings colleague, my former Brookings colleague, the David Victor, and he considers no major advanced industrialized country is on track to meet their challenges. And he highlighted a few parties, the U.S., the EU, Japan. You can see these lines, right? So the blue, this is what we need, and white, that's the business as usual, and the pink curve, and that's where we are going right now. So there is a considerable gap for all these major parties. Just don't take me wrong. Those who are on track does not mean they are necessarily doing a better job. Well, to some of them, may just mean their commitment is not so ambitious, right? So we're not blaming. This is not a blaming game. So this is just highlighting, where we are today. U.S., we already know the withdrawal from the Paris Agreement, and domestically, the administration is removing 78 environmental protection rules, and the EPA is not working hard to protect the climate, so just working against it. And with this new administration, the gap is really getting bigger and bigger. Japan has been behaving really, really well. Their efficiency is very high, but for any additional contribution, it will be really, really costly. Okay, we talk about the carbon market. China announced the carbon market to have a nationwide carbon market in September 25th, September 25th, 2015, right? So we announced to make it in place by the end of 2017 for 8 sectors. So what happened? This is what happened. By the end of 2017, we no longer have 8 sectors. We have 1 sector, power, all right? And even until today, we do not have a nationwide carbon market working, operating, running, right? We do not have it. And we have 7 pilots. And the price of carbon is just about $10 per ton of carbon dioxide, which is very low. It's much lower than we really need. Then, so Professor Gibson just highlighted China is really doing great. For instance, by the end of last year, China has already exceeded the commitment under the Copenhagen Accord, right? Delivered a 46% of decrease of carbon intensity, right? 2 years earlier, and then exceeded. And China is on track to deliver its Paris, and China is doing very well to cut the coal consumption. And by last year, well, and the year before, there is a little bit of rebound. Nevertheless, they still didn't go back to the level of 2013, which was a peak. Brazil, we already know they are not working really well. The new president is not helping, and the clean energy investment last year, China invested about $100 billion. Right, that's still the largest. China has been leading the world investment in clean energy for the 10 consecutive years, ever since 2009. It goes from 30% to 1/3. But last year, it was a 20% down as compared to the previous year. Well, the good news is the price is low. I mean, the cost is low. Some people are looking at the fiscal policy, and the fiscal policy is not really working very well, right? Carbon tax, good idea. We have heard the last couple of days, 45 scholars was asking for implement a carbon tax. But look at what is happening in Paris, right? The president just trying to put a very modest carbon fuel tax, and then what we see is this yellow vest movement, right? This is in Paris. People in Paris stand up and work against the Paris Agreement. What is that kind of logic? The logic is this Paris logic is not really working very well. You ask the country to commit themselves, but they can't really deliver. They cannot really deliver. So this political logic is not working very well. So what I'm recommending here is we seek truth from fact, right? We have to face this reality, then we work from here. The reality is these pledges are voluntary. They are not legally binding. They're not legally binding. Yeah, my friend Vicky will tell you, EU is really leading the world. But what I'm not happy with the EU is they think this is legally binding, right? So that's where we're different. So I think they're not. But we do know there are a couple of things that are working really well. Domestic policy and actions, air pollution driven here in China, and technological innovation deployment, and investment, a lot of investment in technology, and a lot of consensus, actually, on climate science. and decoupling the economy from fossil fuel. And the younger generation, we have lots of them today. The younger generation is really great. And we'll also know what is not working, the target not being met, and finance is not quite available. Tech transfer, terrible tech transfer, and emissions did not respond. And the carbon market does not really meet the expectations. Finally, reform. How are we going to go from here? I think it is time to thinking about how, who are the stakeholders, right? What we're doing today, so far, for the last more than quarter of a century, is a UN-led top-down approach, right? Even for this Paris Agreement, it's a bottom-up for the goal, but it's a top-down for implementation. We need to think about other stakeholders, the business, the NGOs, the people, the public. And they have a role and they have their own accountability to fulfill. And we need to design this, redesign this approach, and we need to redefine the role of the UN, right? We need to retune the models, and we have a lot of numerical models, and reinforce technological change, rebalance the economy. After all, it's a very much economic problem. We need to reshape our culture, and we need to rebuild our civilization. In China, we talk about the eco-civilization, and that's probably the only way we can assure our common future. Thank you very much. All right.